Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rock and Roll Union Streamcast. I am CT coming at you live from halftime in Newark, Delaware, with my good friend Marc Ozello. We're going to be talking. Let's hold on for 1 second. Hide that overlay, guys. Sorry about that. But once again, I'm CT coming at you live from halftime. Sports bar music venue in Newark, Delaware, with my good friend Marc Ozello. We've been talking for a little bit now about the rock scene, what's going on, and there's not many venues left. I mean, thanks to Marc, he keeps it rolling. Not a lot of music venues left, Marc. A lot of them are dying out.
I know, man. It's a tough business, man, as you are well aware, and we've been talking about for years and years, and trying to strike that balance to get people to come out to the shows and promote the show as well. Those are the two big things. Anticipating what people really want to hear.
And I want to dive into that whole promotional aspect and some of the do's and do nots as far as bands are concerned. But I also want to give people a little idea about your history, how long the bar has been here, some of the things that you've been involved with, maybe even before the bar. So how long have you been in the music industry?
Long time. Long time, decades, as a musician, keyboard player. And then about 8 years ago, made the decision to get out of the corporate world that I was in because it kind of sucked and I was tired of it, and decided to open halftime. So an opportunity did present itself, and went for it at that point. And that was back in 2015.
Nice. So how's it been since then?
It's good. I mean, business has its ups and downs. The whole pandemic and all that really kind of shit all over all businesses. It didn't help. It didn't help the music industry at all. It didn't help the hospitality business, whether it be hotels, bars, restaurants. It was a struggle, and it kind of lingered for a long time.
I wanted to ask you about that. What are some of the strategies, so many businesses we saw fell off because of the pandemic. What are some of the things that helped keep you afloat through that time and kept you here?
We were closed for 2.5 months.
Okay,
so that was mandated, and that we had no choice. We couldn't open up. So when you have no revenue stream coming into your business, everybody wants to be paid still, whether it be electric and gas, whether it be water, whether it be cable, internet, rent, insurance. It doesn't stop. So unfortunately, you have to pivot. You got to go into your pocket and you got to make things happen. Otherwise, you're going to go south. And that's the harsh reality of kind of what went down.
And from what I know of you, you're here every day. You're here all the time.
Man, all the time.
So how was it? 2.5 months off. I'm sure you were pacing the walls at that point.
I was home a lot of times, and I just, after a certain period of time, I just said, you know what, man, let me just go up, come up to the bar, sit in my office, and, bills still have to be paid and things have to be done. So, you lose your mind, and it was depressing too, on top of it all.
So COVID hit in March, like second week, mid-March.
It did.
When did you first bring music back?
Right away, as soon as we opened in June. We did a show called At a Rock Down, and I think I had 9 bands on that bill. It was kind of like a welcome back. It was all original music, and it was a really fun time, but there were a lot of mandates, and people were still very wonky about coming out. People had to be seated. The capacity was greatly diminished. There were no bar stools at the bar. I couldn't have any bar stools at the bar. Pool tables were closed, dartboards were closed. Everybody had to remain seated. It was very difficult. So the bartender would have to walk over to the high top.
Like a waitress at this point.
Exactly, just like a server. Take the order down, go back behind the bar, mix the drink, ring it, and then bring it back to the customer.
Now, were the customers giving towards the wait staff at that point? Were they doing decent as far as tips and things along those lines?
I think people were very, very generous during that time, and they still have continued to be very generous, to the bartenders here. We give good service to begin with, so they appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then, but you can't make up for all that lost closure.
Right.
It's just, you got to put it in the rearview mirror, man, and that's the end of it.
Now, have you ever made it even or climbed out of that hole that you were in from 2020?
Well, those
I mean, we're talking 3 years now.
those sales are lost. You never get them back.
Yeah.
You never get them back. They're done.
Did it take you a while to get back into like
A groove
a groove
type
of things?
It took a little bit of time. It was a little slow because of those heavy, Delaware mandates. They were pretty strict, and the ATF was coming around and checking up, making sure people are wearing masks, people are sitting, nobody's playing pool,
No one's having fun.
no one was really having a good time. But at least there was some people, coming back out.
Yeah.
But it was a slow crawl back. And then finally it was started to really gain some good traction. And then I think it was Thanksgiving weekend of I think it might have been 2020. And the governor decided to instill mandates back on. So we went backwards because he felt that it was going to be a super spreader in restaurants and bars if people were walking around or, doing their thing without having a mask on, which unfortunately, it really didn't help the situation.
Yeah.
It really didn't.
And it helped throw an extra wave of panic out there that
Yes,
kind
it
of
did.
kept people away as
People
well.
were very frightened, and they didn't want to do it. Friends of mine that I knew, they like, Mark, I don't want to get sick. I can't come out. But it's like anything else. It was serious.
Yeah.
It was definitely serious. I don't know the validity of how it was reported.
Right.
The deaths.
Right.
I have friends in the that work in hospitals and stuff, and there's conflicting viewpoints of what constitutes a COVID death.
Yeah.
So if you didn't die from COVID but you got hit by a train, well, you had it in you anyway, so we're gonna count it.
Yeah.
So I think there was some money involved during all of that.
Oh, no doubt.
And I think you're right. I think that totally put the fear in people. And then they were trying to, outside dining and this and that, but I don't think that really took off too well.
And with all that, I mean, it's still, in a younger generation, trying to get the younger generation into venues, into seeing live music, into things like that, and they're already accustomed to maybe hanging out at home with their headset on, playing their video games, or going online and meeting up with friends that way. It makes it even harder to bring them out. Like, it makes it tougher for business, makes it tougher for bands to perform.
It does. That's a very valid point. Is getting the younger folks to come out and see some live music. A lot of the bands and tribute bands that I book here, a lot of them are legacy bands. Those bands are 30, 40, and even 50 years old, whether it be Maiden, Priest, Kiss. I mean, those bands are old, and they're not going to be around all that much longer.
No, yeah, we were talking about that before we came on the air. We were talking about no more than maybe 10 years tops. We're going to be seeing the end of these legacy bands, the end of the big major bands, and at which point you can't help but think that it's going to be the end of the big stadium shows. I mean, who's going to be playing these big shows?
I don't know.
And I'm hoping it comes back to full circle when they start playing the smaller venues and bringing people out that way. But it's a crapshoot. Now, as far as bringing people in the door, we were talking a little bit about that as well, as far as what genres or what type of music brings people out. Now, I've had some people say that, and I've heard it so many times, that original music can't sell, but then I've been in places that were packed by original music.
Absolutely.
I think it's a matter of how you do things. Now, as far as you're concerned, as a business owner, as somebody that's been involved in music as well, what are some things that bands can do to make themselves more marketable, more appealing to people coming out?
I think one of the things that bands need to do is that, I'm pretty strict about how I do my promoting and marketing. So, if you come into halftime, you're going to see a huge banner behind the stage of the shows upcoming, at least the next two. There's flyers in the window that I pay a graphic artist to come and do. Miller Coors takes care of that for me and prints everything. So my end of it is that piece of the promotion. But when I post an event, a show, sometimes some bands won't accept the invite for a month,
Yeah.
3 weeks. So, that is something that I think bands can really help themselves by jumping on it, because they know I send a message out to let them know the event is out. So, help yourselves. We can work together to make it successful. It's not any one person's responsibility.
Absolutely.
It has to be a joint effort. I pay for sponsored ads. It costs me money to promote these shows. And it's critical that everybody promotes. I look at some of these bands and say, if each, there were 5 band members in a band, and there's 2 bands that night, and there's 10 musicians, if everybody in that band brought only 5 people or 4 people, you would see how robust the outcome would be of the shows.
Right.
And you have to stay on it. You can't bank on family and friends coming out to every show.
Yeah, exactly.
They won't. So you have to develop that culture and develop that following on your own.
Now, as far as some of the shows, now you're booked almost an entire year out in advance.
I'm pretty close. The Saturdays are almost finished this year. I have some Fridays available. I'm already starting on 2024.
Wow.
That's Paradise Rose is coming back next year. Guns N' Roses tribute.
Now, as far as the exact details of that show, I hear some venue owners don't want to deal with things because they have other events coming before that.
Mm-hmm.
About how much time do you give yourself to plan for an event?
It depends. If it's a national, I'll probably go 4 months, maybe even 5. It depends. And if it's a national, I've had some nationals in here last year, Spread Eagle and Trapped, and I have Johnny Craig coming in this year. So it's when those contracts are all signed and buttoned up, and the riders are tended to, and everybody's looked at everything, and then you can get it out there. So you can do a show 6 months out. That's fine. There's really no right or wrong answer, but I wouldn't wait 2 weeks before a show to post it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't.
I've seen that happen so many times, and some of the events that I've even put on, as far as you go on the band's social media pages and you see no mention of the show at all, you can't expect to bring people in the door if people aren't promoting themselves.
That's correct. They need to help promote, and some bands really do a great job.
Yeah, they do.
They really do a phenomenal job. Like a couple of the bands that I'm real proud of are like Solar Federation. It's a female-fronted Rush tribute. They're here in a couple months. Or Denim and Leather.
Out
in New Jersey. Jeff Baker and his guys, man, they just promote the shit out of it. And not only that, both those bands are great bands. So you're going to see an A band when you come here. But they promote. They get it out there.
Yeah.
And those are the bands that, those are just an example of 2 of the bands. Fade to Black. From the Baltimore, Virginia.
Yeah, I see them constantly online.
Zach just promotes and he helps me make it successful. We do it together. So when you have both parties doing sponsored events, and just one share once a week is not going to get you there.
Right.
You have to penetrate the market and the zip codes to get it into the right people.
And we are in a time and age, and I'm sure that you wish it was there when you were playing the clubs. Is we live in a day and age where it doesn't cost you a whole lot to promote yourself, to get that out there. And it's very easy to reach people.
Back in the 80s, New York City, man, we had flyers and we would put them on car windows and
telephone
poles, nailing them on trees and stuff like that. But, it wasn't uncommon in 83 to do an original show in Manhattan, do a 30-minute set like I used to do. And in that club on a Tuesday night, there were 800 people there.
Yeah.
There were 600 people there. It was a different era. The music scene was completely different. And it's obviously degressed over the decades.
Now with talking genres, talking different forms of music, we talked a little bit before we came on air as far as what really goes over well, what people come out to see. Now there's some music that is out there that is great listening to, but doesn't attract a whole lot of people.
True.
And then there's other forms of music that some people have a hard time with, like metal, that sells like hotcakes.
It does.
Is there any ideas to why metal is? They listed it as the number one search for music on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
Any ideas why metal is so big but still so underground?
I would have to say that metalcore, thrash, death metal, those bands don't have a lot of places to play in. There's really not a forum
Yeah.
here. Forget Delaware, Jersey. I don't really, maybe Dingbats up in Clifton.
Yeah.
That might pretty much be it. But there's not a place for them to play. So when I put a metal show together, and a lot of them come from your area,
Yeah.
Whether it be Burned in Effigy or Stat or bands like that, the people want to come see them because there's no place to go see them because there's a stigma attached to it. There's going to be violence. There's going to be, they're going to tear the place up and, fuck shit up and put holes in the walls. That is not the case. You never ever judge a book by its cover.
Now, when you have metal shows here,
Mhm.
I've never been here for a full-on metal show.
Okay.
Are they having mosh pits here?
Oh,
Are they?
yeah. Absolutely. I had a show a few weeks ago in Nine Dead. I don't know if you know what that band is. Nine Dead.
No.
I was on the phone with Jonathan today, actually working on something new, and they're a great band. They are just a great band, and we had 4 death metal bands that night, and there was about 100 and maybe 120, 30 in here that night, which is a nice turnout. And yeah, they were moshing, they were having a great time.
That's awesome.
But they weren't killing each other. So if somebody hit the floor and fell, the other person would pick them up, and it was respectful. Super nice people, and I couldn't ask for a better crowd when it comes to like the metal shows. They're great.
Looking for guys. I apologize. You guys have known this for a little while. If you don't go in under StreamYard, I have a hard time seeing who the poster is. So I'm looking on my Facebook right now. If you can, if you're posted, and it makes it a lot easier to list your name with it. But this person is saying we got to get down there one of these days. Who are we talking to? If you could put your name down so we know who you are. But yeah, guys, there's a lot of good stuff to be had here. I mean, as far as the metal crowd is concerned,
Mhm.
something that we've always talked about is metalheads seem to be some of the nicest,
They are
most genuine
Absolutely.
people you'll meet.
Absolutely. And when you give these musicians a forum to perform, a place to play, make them feel welcome, they're loyal.
This is Pat Shoemaker from Sick Vicky. Sick Vicky, man, one of those bands from late 80s, early 90s, Philadelphia Galaxy.
That band just came across my desk this week, so we might be having a conversation.
Man, I mean, there's been talks. I mean, there's so many cool bands that are back out from that time period. Like
Absolutely.
to get a Sick Vicky and maybe a Heaven's Edge show together would be really cool.
That would be great. That would be great. I mean, I have Spread Eagle back this year.
Yes.
They're coming back in May, which was great to have them. I had them in November. But then again, not only is it the metal, but of course there's the tribute acts, and most of them they're actually pretty good. Most of the shows, whether it be Guns N' Roses, female-fronted Stone Temple Pilots, Tool. I kind of run the gamut on just about everything. Pat Benatar is this weekend with my band.
Nice. You're playing this
My
weekend.
band will be here.
Good stuff.
I have an all-female Motley Crue tribute from Long Island coming in March.
What is the name of that?
Red Hot.
Red Hot.
Red Hot. And then Johnny Craig. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
He'll be here on the 18th. Those tickets are selling really well. But the real hitters are like bands like Pantera.
Yeah.
And Made in America. Those are Eric's bands, and they're great. They're great musicians. They're great bands. They're heavier. And then like I said, I have a lot of metal shows. Also this year, Denim and Leather is back here in May.
I love Denim and Leather,
And
man.
the opener is a band called Old School. Did you ever hear of Old
Yes.
School?
Paul.
Killer band, man. Killer.
Paul, talking about Sick Vicky, Paul opened up for Sick Vicky.
Okay.
Yeah, Instinct opened up for it, which is Paul's original band. Opened up for Sick Vicky for us.
Nice.
Yeah, Paul's a really good dude, man. Paul's a great guy. I've never seen Old School, but I know Paul pretty well, and that's a hell of a combination. And when I saw that show at Now's, I was like, man, I got to be here for this.
it's going to be great. And a lot of bands that break into a new market, this is the place to do it because there's nothing here.
Yeah.
There's nothing here that, the cap here is pretty robust and full. It's roomy, it's spacious. The in-house system is great. So it caters to musicians.
That's one thing that I wanted to bring up that you do so well. And I remember when you first started working on it was the stage that you have out there now. I remember when you redid the stage.
Right.
And some of the venues that I've been to, and I'm sure everybody watching has been to, is, you set up on tile or you set up in the corner somewhere of a venue that isn't made. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And how important is that stage to you as a business owner, as a musician? Like, how great is that stage for you?
It's like the best because most bands or a lot of bands will be playing, like you said, on the floor, shoved in the corner of a room. And I guess this new thing now is these bands playing up in Jersey in like a diner, which I'm not really getting.
I haven't heard. I've heard of that, but
up there, and they're playing, in a diner. If that's what you want to do, fine. But the stage really is the pinnacle of the room.
Yeah.
And it's the focal point. All the subs are under the stage. The lighting is all there. It's just a great system.
One thing I wanted to bring up as far as the stage and the sound is concerned, your sound guys are top notch. I was in here for the Legion of Prague show,
Yep.
and I had to tell your sound guy how phenomenal of a job he was doing. How important is it to you to hire the right people for sound?
Well, I recently hired a new company. So the company that you heard was Audio Firm.
Okay.
And Jake Long owns that company, and he has about 8 or 10 different techs working for him. Giving the customer a concert quality experience, to me, is one of the most important things.
Yeah.
If I let the sound techs, let it rip, man. I'm not worried about volume in here. I want the customers to feel it. Where in a lot of places the owners will say, turn it down, it's too loud, whatever. But this is a different kind of place, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you saw, was it Legion of Prague?
Yep.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. I mean, some of the nuances with prog rock, as far as like the keyboard player is concerned, or certain effects are concerned that you don't get in some other forms of music, are critical to get that sound right.
Absolutely.
And it blew me away seeing how much detail they added to that.
Absolutely. Jake has a bunch of guys that work for him. And I think I've had maybe 3 or 4 different guys in here, and they all learn the club. They will all rotate in and out, and every one of them is professional. They've done a great job, and you can attest to it.
Yeah.
You were here.
Yep.
It's clean. It's clear.
Now, one of the things that used to happen way back in the day, you talk about going back to the time in New York. I grew up as a kid. My parents were booking agents, so I was doing roadie work late 80s, early 90s. I remember when bands would have to bring out their own sound guy, when bands would have to hire somebody to come in and do sound for them. Now, a lot of the venues are doing that in-house.
Yes.
Which to me is a big plus. And it's something that bands don't have to worry about paying anymore.
That's right.
So that's something that bands need to take into consideration when it comes time for them getting paid.
That's correct. That's correct. And and as you are well aware, some places, some venues will take money off the top.
Yeah.
Or they will do other things to get reimbursed for that. But you get 100, 125 people in a show, you could take 300-400 from the bands. There's just not a whole lot left.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. And I don't do, as you know, we had this discussion. I don't do pay to play.
Yeah.
If I'm going to hire a national, I'm going to pay a national. I'm going to make the deal. I'm going to strike the deal, and I'm not going to have my bands go out and say, here's 10 tickets or 20 tickets. You got to give me $500. If you don't sell them, you're out the money.
Yeah,
I don't do that.
I
wouldn't want that done to me, and I would most certainly don't want to do that to my fellow musicians.
Now, you have a plethora of bands that you do constant business with, that you bring back repeatedly.
I do.
As far as any newer bands that want to come play halftime, like what is in your mind, what are some things that a band needs to show to you to be able to get their foot in the door?
The best way to get a hold of me is through Facebook Messenger. So if anybody is looking to possibly book a show with me, I answer personally everything. Sometimes it might take me a little time. And if there's a band that I know that is just not going to fit the model here, a lot of times I'll just say back, I'm sorry, but it's not what I'm looking for, or sometimes I won't answer.
Right.
There's too many. See,
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
there's way too. I get too many inquiries, emails, Facebook messages. I can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
It's just way too much. But that's really the best way to do it. Send me some video, send me some audio. If you have a little EPK or something you want to send over, I can listen to it. I will know if the band will fit 15, 20 seconds of listening to it.
Gotcha.
I'll know if it's going to work here.
Gotcha.
I don't even need to hear, 2, 3, 4 songs. Don't need it.
Now, as far as EPKs, that's something that I've been preaching about for a little while, is the importance of that. As a business owner, how important are those EPKs?
It's important so I can hear what the band sounds like. And a lot of bands will send over some live footage. A lot of times that footage that they send over is recorded on a cell phone.
Yeah.
And it a lot of times it does not translate very well, and it makes the band sound not good.
And I remember back in the day, like I said, my parents were booking agents. I just remember a band would have to have a full portfolio with headshots and
pictures,
sound, and everything, a video that went along with it.
Yep. And
bands now don't seem to put in that work.
Some do, some definitely do, and some don't. So it would help really to put together, even if you just went into a sound stage for 4 hours, 3 hours, and just did a couple songs live, and take the signal right off the board and get it mixed. And I think that would really help the bands, and it would make the bands probably more attractive to either a booking agent or a club owner.
Now, as far as the original scene, how often do you bring original music in? And
all the time. It's just all the time. I mean, I just had a couple of metal shows that just passed. I have a show coming up in March with it's a metal show, Thracia ZFL, Burned in Effigy, Execution Order. But yeah, I do them all the time. I go heavy on that in the summer.
Yeah.
I stay away from the tributes in the summer. A lot of people go away up close to the beaches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a band out of New York. We're doing something with. They're called Path We Choose. Black Winter, Thracia, Burned in Effigy. That's in April. The next night, Ashes to Vanity, and there's another band out of Pennsylvania. Vitruvia is going to be is headlining that show. So yeah, I got plenty of original music.
So we have somebody, like I said, don't mind me, guys. I'm trying to see who we're talking to, but somebody posted the proper package costs money, and a lot of the bands can't make the money anymore to build a proper package. We also live in a day and age where digital things can be done from home. I mean, we live in a day and age where a lot of bands are recording albums right in their basement, and you're talking top quality sounding studio. The time for $1 million studios doesn't have to be anymore. I mean, there's certain ways that you got to be a little tech savvy. You got to be able to do that.
I put a studio in my house a couple years ago, and the quality is actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good, and I record, I mix it myself, do all the plugins.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, what's a pack? I'm not a musician,
right?
But in order to get a halfway decent sound in the studio, what would that cost somebody?
Maybe $4,000. To get something decent. It's not horrible.
Yeah.
But to that person's point, to put a package together does cost money. But that's where every band member has to chip in. And it's not left to the band leader to really be the one to pay the whole boat on that. But there are some really good studios around that will work with you.
Yeah.
And not kill you on they're not going to charge you $100 an hour to record. Maybe they'll charge you, 40 or 50, and I know some of them. So, It's a valid point, though. It's
Yeah.
expensive to put something together.
It is, and it's something that that goes into the cost of being a band. Being a musician is, as everybody knows, is not a cheap.
It's not.
Instruments, down to guitar strings, wires, everything costs
cables,
money.
and you know what? It's your time investment too. Your time is
Yeah.
worth something.
Yeah.
And musicians put a lot of time and effort into their music and practicing and schlepping their gear back and forth, and it's a lot of work. And I give it to the bands out there now that are really at it. And they're aggressive, and some of them are doing well, but it's just a different era.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a different era for music than it was, even in the 90s.
Now, as far as you see it, as far as seeing people come in the door, and you get to see a lot more than I do, the crowds that are coming out. They always talk about rock music being kind of circular. Do you see that upswing coming back?
As far as straight hard rock music, I'm not seeing a ton of it.
Gotcha.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm just not. I am seeing more of the metalcore and the death. I'm seeing more of that. There's a lot of big festivals going on for metalcore, death metal shows. Very popular overseas.
Oh yeah.
It's a big deal in Europe. It's popular here as well, but it's very, very popular overseas.
Yeah, well, even hard rock's popular over. Like, we're behind the 8 ball, I feel, as far as rock is concerned in this country. We're really behind what the rest of the world is doing.
I just think we need some, when people say, when are we ever going to have another Led Zeppelin, or when is there ever going to be another Metallica, or when is there ever going to be, another Iron Maiden? They're all legacy bands.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling it, man, of people coming up behind them.
Well, you got two main reasons for that, and I feel one of them is anytime a band tries to come out these days and tries to put some kind of movement or sound behind them, immediately they're getting criticized by the holier than thou rock crowd. Look at bands like Greta Van Fleet. They sound like Zeppelin. They suck. They don't suck. They sound good. They're bringing up a new generation of bands behind them, so we write them off. And then the other thing is, like, as far as the culture that we live in, like, nobody's going, like, we talked about that. Music education is no more in the schools. Like, we're
hurting ourselves. We're not giving our young kids and children an opportunity to experiment in school at a young age by playing in the orchestra or singing in the choir. A lot of those programs have been pulled because of budget constraints.
And it's ridiculous because
it doesn't help. We talk about a problem that where does it all start? Well, you know what? It starts there.
Yeah.
When we were kids, we all played in the, in the marching band or whatever we did, and then we realized that it sucked and we didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And we did something else, and we played guitar, we played keyboards, whatever.
If you see any young people today, I'm talking anyone, I'm 21 and younger, if you see anybody out there that picks up a guitar, picks up a drum, whatever the case may be, they're coming from a musical background. They're coming from a musical family.
Usually.
And it wasn't always like that, but that's the way it is now.
It wasn't. I didn't come from a musical family. So when it came time, when you're a little kid in, 4th grade, 5th grade, and, okay, parents, this is what we're doing. We acquired, would your kids be interested in doing this? And of course, your parents try to push you into something to try to experiment with something like that. But it worked because we got a lot of really good musicians from those era.
I even remember when my boys, who are my older boys, not my 3-year-old, but my 20-something-year-olds, even in their time coming up, like, there was still that movement towards pushing to learn instrumentation. Right. And now that's not going to be around when my 3-year-old goes to school. It's not going to be.
It won't be. And then we wonder why, Guitar Center is in Chapter 11 or in and out of Chapter 11. Why all the mom and pop music stores, Manny's Music in New York is long gone.
Yeah.
All these great music stores, and they can't sell it because there's nobody to sell it to.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunately, it's a spiral effect.
Now, as far as the upcoming schedule for you guys, what's it look like? What are we talking? I know you said what is it? The Pat Benatar tribute's here this week with you guys.
My band, Conspiracy Theory, is here with Tony's band out of New Jersey called Shadows of the Night.
Nice.
Pat Benatar tribute, really super good band. And then on the 25th of February, I have Vicarious Tool tribute.
Nice.
With a female-fronted Stone Temple Pilots tribute out of New York City.
That's interesting.
Really good, really good band. Rush tribute, Solar Federation in March. Another metal show, Johnny Craig. The all-female Motley Crue tribute.
Yeah, I'm looking forward
is
to
also
that.
in March. I book a band out of Delaware called Big Toe. They're one of the very few locals that I do book, and they bring a huge crowd, and they're great.
That's
So
awesome.
they're doing my St. Patrick's party. But yeah, I mean, it's, that's kind of what I'm doing. Metallica's back, and tribute, and Spread Eagle's back, like we talked about. Remedy.
Remedy's
They're
great.
coming back. They'll be here in May.
I'll tell you what, if you're a Black Crowes fan, and now they don't really necessarily have the look, but I've seen Remedy. If you close your eyes while listening to Remedy, you swear it's the Black Crowes. They are that good. And our good friend, a good supporter of the Union for a long time, Chico Crow, is in that band. Chico's an awesome dude. And how do people go about finding you online?
The best way is to go on Facebook and just do a search for Halftime Sports Bar and Music Venue. It'll pop right up. Please hit like or follow, and then everything I put out there, you'll see it. And I'm sure there's a lot of really good stuff that you might like to come out and see. It's a fun club. It's clean. It's big. There's something here for everybody. And if you've never been here, or if you're a band looking to break into the Northern Delaware market, I'm always looking for new projects, whether it be original or tribute. Hit me up, man. I'd love to talk to you and see if we can get you guys in here.
Awesome. Mark, thank you so much,
Thank
brother.
you, my man.
And guys, that's it for our time. Be good to one another, and until next time, don't just leave it. Leave it better. Have a great week, everybody.